Well, we've been waiting all week. It's been a battle that not only this week, in fact, actually for the season, that both Riverside and Mount SAC has heavily anticipated, where tonight the winner of this clash between the two powerhouses of Southern California will face off against not American River, but San Francisco City College in the state championship game 2 weeks from tonight. And Dan, there's really the headlines and all that extra business. It really goes out the window here tonight. Winner moves on to the state championship game.
They do. So two things are at stake tonight. The SCFA championship game here against Mount San Antonio. And, of course, like you said, the winner of this game goes on to play the Triple CAA state championship game. So a lot at stake. And the big picture is get to next week.
Well, yet again, I want to thank all of you guys for joining us, all who are listening to the national sports radio station on Spreaker.com, one of the most lively stations here on the Spreaker.com network. This is the battle of a lifetime to get you guys caught up to speed on what all is involved between these two teams. Riverside entered the season as the number one team in the state of California among junior colleges, with last year, many called an aberration, a loss in the SoCal Championship game to Fullerton last year. Now they go back to the same exact spot following a rocky season. And, Dan, it all began with that Week 3 loss.
It did, against Grossmont. A game we anticipated. You and I, we talked about it all week. We said, hey, this game is going to be super easy. It'll be a blowout. Watch. Next thing you know, we walk away with our heads down along with the Riverside Tigers. But Tom Kraft has, you can't doubt the guy. The guy, he's barely in his fifth season, and he has an impressive record of 50 wins, 6 losses only. You got to give him credit for that. But the elusive state title, he's still chasing, Nick.
He's still chasing that to go along with a Southern California title in which he can win tonight. And it just would be one more step in the way for a man who, after his days at San Diego State, is looking to win at the junior college level. We talked about Riverside last year. They got out in the Southern California game, yet they were able to bounce back strong following the Grossmont loss. They have rattled off 8 consecutive wins to enter tonight's ball game with a win and in. In fact, make it, 8 wins in a row. They're 10-1 on the season. They were able to knock off National Central Conference champion Ventura last week. And now here are the Tigers 1 win away from the state championship game. What has impressed you the most as far as the Tigers are concerned with their 10-1 resume and how they have been among the best overall as a football team in all 3 phases?
I've been impressed by many things, but the thing that stands out the most is the quarterback position. Early on in the season, we didn't know the identity of this team. This team was really up and down. For the first, except that first game against Bakersfield where they won 51-0, we didn't know the exact identity, what their exact scheme was on offense. Nicholas King comes in and he impresses everybody, and from then on, he's been the main man, Nick.
He certainly has. Nicholas King, the Westchester High School product. He played at El Camino College 2 years ago as a freshman. Then after a redshirt campaign, ended up transferring to Riverside City College with an opportunity to start. He was the leading passer over there at El Camino. But he was in tough competition, tough sledding, if you will. Shane Vernala and the former Columbia University transfer Kelly Helinski were both in that quarterback battle. At the end of the day, it was the upper hand won after the Grossmont game by our very own Nick King. And since he's taken the field, they have won 8 consecutive games. And he's looking to make it 10 in a row by winning here tonight and 2 weeks from now in the state championship. The Tigers are 10-1, not only led by our quarterback Nick King, but a defense that, while the statistics may not prove they're the best, they do just about everything better than everyone else when it comes to run defense, when it comes to the ability to at home. To a very interesting stat, over the last 6 games here at the Jungle, no halfback on the other side has reached the end zone. That is a statistic that nobody in the country can say the same thing.
That's super impressive. And another impressive thing is they close out games when it matters the most in the fourth quarter. Somehow, some way, they manage to create a turnover, recover a fumble, get that big sack, take an interception to the house. Somehow, some way, like I said, Riverside always finds a way.
Riverside has recorded 34 sacks, 23 interceptions, and have also put 6 touchdowns on the board on the defensive side through just 11 games. That's impressive and actually the number 1 statistic among remaining playoff teams in California. They're 10-1. One of their wins came against Mount SAC in week number 7. The Mounties enter tonight's ball game with coming into the playoffs, a very slim shot to enter the postseason. And then here, with a very slim shot to win tonight. They're ranked number 2. And really, this is a ball club that believes they will win, have the statistics to prove it. They are better in nearly every statistical category than Riverside. But right. You talk to Tom Kraft, and you also talk to the other man, Bob Jastrab, and they both believe that this is going to be the game of the ages. I really think that this will not disappoint. It's going to be a fantastic 1 versus 2 here in Southern California.
Well, another guy we have to talk about is Bob Jastrab, coach of Mount SAC, currently holding 102 wins. He's only 20 losses in the 10 years he's been there. And, of course, the most important stat of them all, 5 Southern California titles. And to go along with that, 2 national titles. So, impressive resume for sure. But 3 of the last 5 against RCC, he's gone down. So RCC has taken care of business in the regular season. And now here we are in a championship game where it most matters. Let's see if they could win 4 of the last 6.
Yeah, not to mention the Tigers have won the last 2 meetings dating back to 2013. They upended Mount SAC and their pursuit for a conference championship. One thing that's very interesting is that Mount SAC at one point won 7 consecutive conference titles, but that streak ended really at a very screeching halt when Riverside claimed the title last year and this year as well, away from their National Central Conference competitors in Mount SAC. The Mounties are 9-2, including 4-2 in league play. They dismantled the defending SoCal champions in Fullerton College as the final score in that ball game, 47-14 in favor of the visiting Mount SAC Mounties. They enter tonight's ball game with a little bit of momentum and a statistic that top 5 in scoring defense and top 10 in scoring offense believe that they can come in here and play very well.
Yeah, last week we actually got to witness the victory over Fullerton, and how impressive were they? They were hitting on all cylinders. As soon as we walk onto the field, it was already a blowout.
Yeah.
And so we were sort of disappointed. We were looking forward to a battle to the end, but Mount SAC proved to be the more dominant force that game. I don't know what happened to Fullerton. Fullerton last year was in this game here, and I guess just a big drop-off for them. And Mount SAC, here we are, 9-2, and fighting for a chance to play in that big state championship game.
Yeah, and they really have a fighter's chance. And last game, when the Tigers played the Mounties, it came down to the final few minutes, and really the Mounties, with an 11-point lead, believed that was more than enough to pull away. But the Tigers ended up cashing in with 2 touchdown drives and were, frankly, in the fourth quarter, the much more clutch ball club. This is a team in the Tigers that for 60 minutes believed that the game plan will work to perfection. Mount SAC, they really crumbled. They fell apart like a bunch of dominoes down the fourth quarter. One thing turned into the next.
It really did. And if you were to take a look at what Denzel Foster did that game, you wouldn't be all that impressed. On 15 attempts, only 66 yards, but the stat that matters the most is those 2 touchdowns, the last 2 scores to finish out the game. Riverside finishing out that game with a 12-0 run in that fourth quarter, and the rest is history, and they remain number 1 as they started at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he was the main point of the Tigers' offense in the fourth quarter during their rally to win the ball game. They scored the final 12 points. That ended up being the knockout punch where the Tigers ended up upsetting the Mount SAC Mounties, who were ranked ahead of them in that regular season ball game. Now the Mounties know that they can at least cut it close to the Tigers. Your thoughts about how the Mounties will be able to counter, knowing that they had the lead. And folks, listen, they did not trail in the ball game until with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They had the lead for nearly the entire contest and gave it up late.
Well, so the main point is finishing the game. That's the biggest thing for Mount SAC, but let's go into more depth. The thing I liked about Mount SAC, the last game they faced RCC, was the defensive scheme they put on Nicholas King, containing him in the pocket and forcing Nicholas King to beat him with his arm and not with his legs, which is his greatest strength, I would say, his ability to run, dodge defenders, and getting that big first down, usually on third downs.
Yes, Nick King is actually the most dangerous rushing quarterback, dual threat in Southern California, running for 56.8 rush yards per game. Given this is a quarterback that's doing that, he has been phenomenal and did the same exact thing against Mount SAC. He was a man that, while his statistics weren't very impressive on the last 2 drives of the ball game for the Tigers against these Mounties, he engineered 4 third-down conversions, ran for 44 yards, and also was 5 of 8 passing on those 2 touchdown drives. 68 all-purpose yards there during the final 6:38 of the ball game. Just to get you guys caught up to speed, it's a battle for the Southern California Championship, and the storylines are as follows. Mount SAC, their statistics look extremely beautiful. Everywhere across the board, they just look to be like the better team. They dismantled the National Northern Conference champions 44-11 over Fullerton College. But here come the Riverside Tigers, who host this ball game because they beat them earlier. It's ugly. It's scrap. It's get in at 8, leave at 5, bring your lunch pail for a hard day's work. The Tigers don't make it look easy, but they always seem to win. They're 10-1 and looking to, at home, win their 31st game in the last 5 years at this junction.
Another point Mount SAC has to make sure they don't do is turn over the ball. 5 turnovers in that game against RCC, and the ones that hurt the most were the final 2. RCC was put in perfect field position to score those 2 go-ahead scores against Mount SAC, so that's something they have to truly clean up tonight.
The last 2 turnovers were when the Mounties led by 11, Omaris Tolbert on a drive that reached the Riverside 2, the Tolbert experiment, if you will, trying to reach the end zone. He fumbled the football, recovered by the Tigers, and just a few minutes later it led to a touchdown. Next Mount SAC drive, following a Tiger lead. They were trying to score with under 2 minutes to go on a 2-minute drive to win it. Allo threw an interception, the 4th on the day for him, and Tashawn Broughton was able to seal the ball game. Just to get you guys also caught up on injuries real quick, Denzel Foster, our halfback for the Tigers, has suited up. It'll be questionable whether he will play today. Meanwhile, to my knowledge, Tashawn Broughton, cornerback for the Tigers, will not be out tonight. I haven't seen him on the field, and he's been dealing with academic allegations all month, and this may just be the knockout punch for the young man tonight. It's going to be a packed crowd here. Already guys filing in about 10 minutes prior to kickoff here. And before we get things going, Dan, get us caught up on all your thoughts for tonight's ball game.
Well, the first thing I would say is RCC, keep pounding that rock through Mount SAC for sure. It's something that's worked all season long. It's the ground game. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, Denzel Foster might not suit up. It's a question mark, game time decision, and we'll see if he could carry the load. If not, it's Christopher Anderson who's going to have to step up, Nick.
And he certainly did last week. His stat line, extremely impressive, and won the National Bowl MVP for the ball game in the first round of the playoffs against Ventura.
That's right. Against Ventura last week, looking very dominant. Christopher Anderson rushing for over 100 yards. Let's see if that continues tonight, if that momentum is carried through to tonight's championship game.
Well, we're just about ready to get going here from the jungle, Arthur and Wheelock Stadium in Riverside this night. We thank you all for joining us on the National Sports Radio station on Spreaker.com. In just a matter of moments, kickoff will be upon us here from the jungle. Winner will be the Southern California Junior College champion for 2014. And meanwhile, the loser, while